it's not that Ichigo doesn't have a goal, it's that his goal is kind of weak. Protect my friends is the generic baseline of all shonen. Naruto and One Piece were clever enough to layer it with ambition. Like, but what exactly does that mean? Like, would it have been better if...
Bleach fans, I'm going to need you guys to come over here and take a seat. We start off with two things. One, that's my mutual, so no hate. And two, Bleach is a good story. It's a great story even. It's super popular. So by itself, there's no issues. However, if we are going to compare and contrast, that's where we're going to have to get into what actually is doing a better job. So the conversation started off talking about goals. Goals are super important, not only for your main character, but for your audience, because your goals tell your audience what the whole story is about, why they should invest their time into it. Naruto is a story about a young boy who wants to become the Hokage. One Piece is a story about Luffy who wants to find the greatest treasure in the world, the One Piece. Full Metal Alchemist is a story about two brothers looking for the Philosopher's Stone so they can get their bodies back. Bleach is a story about Ichigo who wants to protect his friends and families from hollows. That goal does not sound as clear as Naruto and One Piece's goal. It also matters when we get into the execution of the first chapter and the overall theme of the story. The goal, 99% of the time, is your overarching storyline. Think about it. Naruto will end when he becomes a Hokage, or doesn't, depending on the narrative. One Piece will end when Luffy finds a treasure, becomes a Pirate King, or doesn't, depending on the narrative. Full Metal Alchemist will end when they find the Philosopher's Stone and get their bodies back, or don't, depending on the narrative. Then Bleach will end when he protects his friends and family from the hollows, or all the hollows. No. It's when he kills all the hollows. Yeah. What? You see, that's not as clear. I mean, even my mutual said that.
But what exactly does that mean? Like, would it have been better if Ichigo's goal was just become Gote 13 Commander or the Soul King?
Yeah, it would be better because you'd have to define what that is and what that means to the main character early on in your story, mostly the first chapter, and we'd go on from there. Obviously, that would make the story different, but I'm just giving you an example of what would have been a clearer goal. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when I hear Bleach fans say, oh, God forbid Ichigo is more realistic. I'm sorry, but being the Hokage in the world of Naruto is a realistic goal. Being the Pirate King in the world of One Piece is a realistic goal. I'm not talking about whether or not it's hard to accomplish those goals. I'm talking about the goals make sense for the world. Ichigo being a regular high school student and whatever you guys keep saying does not make him any more realistic than these two characters. And I'll say this again, by itself is not as big of a deal, but when we're comparing, that's when it becomes obvious, if you know storytelling. Also said in the video, you felt like the commenter was dumbing down Ichigo's goal, saying his goal was he just wants to protect his friends. However, when you described what Ichigo's goal was, this is what you said.
Ichigo as a character, when it comes to his whole motives of why he's a substitute soul reaper, is to make sure nothing happens, what happened to his mom, happened to anybody else.
So ultimately his goal is to protect